So, archaeology is not exactly archaeology, what I am going to show you, but it's prehistory. Databases and the past. This issue is deeply debated among archaeologists since the diffusion of PC and the easiness with which a large amount of information can be stored, treated, and communicated. Prehistory is not a division of archaeology, but a cluster of various sciences aiming to discover, describe, and interpret any trace of past environments and human behaviors. So archaeology, geology, and a huge array of natural sciences contribute to this goal. Italy, as almost all Mediterranean countries, has been peopled at least 1 million years ago, but some sites point to an age of about 1.5 million years ago, for the first appearance of genus Homo in Western Eurasia. Although prehistory exerts a deep fascination on general public, prehistoric sites are mostly invisible in the open or in the deep, so their touristic attractiveness is barely reduced. Their conservation is threatened by many kinds of human activity as earth-moving, agriculture, infrastructure, often in an unconscious way. Because of these reasons, many important archaeological deposits which punctuated the evolution of man in Italy are today completely wiped out by ravenous urban development. The only evidence we have of them is from scientific literature and specific sections in archaeological museums, often flattened by amphoras or marble statues. Because of my interest in prehistory, conservation and landscape, bibliography, and my past professional involvement in cartography and GIS, about 10 years ago, I sketched out a project searching for a dynamic link between maps and text. I imagine a representation of the landscape in which each archaeological or paleontological site would be linked to its specific literature, and conversely, a tool in which the researcher could be able to retrieve any arrangement of sites according to its bibliographical attributes. I could define this as cartographic hypertext. After 30 years of survey, diggings, and cartography, I can guess that the archaeological site we have on the bookcase is the 10th of the known but unpublished sites. And when we go to the field and carefully survey a region, we discover a 10 times bigger amount of sites. But they are just the survivors of erosion, destruction, and other fortuities. So, our paper on a given archaeological situation probably represents a poor 1 per thousand of sites deposited in the past. It's a very big past, 1 million years. The project I present here, pre-biblio, meaning prehistory and bibliography, would comprise all the published references on Italian prehistoric sites from lower Pleistocene, 2 million years ago, to 8th century BC, namely about the beginning of historical times in Mediterranean world. The project started in 2003. In the first phase, I prepared a feasibility study for the Italian Ministry of Culture, the obvious candidate to fund this kind of work. Just for starting, the most important issues were: 1. How many papers or books have been published in Italy or elsewhere on Italian prehistory, quaternary geology and paleontology, and so on. 2. How many sites are known from literature? 3. The most important point from an economic point of view: how many links should be generated onto topographic maps from such a twofold database. In a 6-month work analyzing journals and books of various language and types, I evaluated that scientific literature on Italian prehistory should be contained in about 60,000 texts, and that published sites of all types: settlement, caves, fluvial deposits, burial sites, and so on, could attain a total of about 25,000. But for creating a relational database, one-to-many relationship shall be generated between records. Judging from an example of some hundred texts, monographies, papers, catalogs, and others, we obtain an average of 12 links between each text and quoted site, which means about 700,000 links that should be georeferenced precisely or approximately. The estimated cost of such a venture would be about 1.3 million euros, with 10 people working for 3 years. In return, we could easily manage the body of previous knowledge about our deep past. Now I'll show you the structure of the database and its cartographic performance at national level. This is the structure, very common, but please have a look at the database itself. This way, it's a simple form for the sites related to literature. Here you have the literature. One site can be quoted by so many authors, and each author, each text, each paper, each book can quote a lot of sites. Obviously, not of the same period, not of the same discipline. You can have geology or archaeology or paleoecology and so on. Here you have an example. You can go to the text and come back to the site. Sure, all this shall be georeferenced. How can we do this? It's a very big problem in Italy because we are not trained to coordinate ourselves in ministry, universities, and so on. It is a simple database from Statistical Institute of Italy with just the perimeter, the polygons of municipalities. And you have here the average density of published reports per square kilometer of territory. So you have a rough idea of our country from a scientific published report on prehistory. As you can see, sites at Rome are not so prehistoric, but they are full of prehistory and libraries. So research is very dense. And in the south of the country, you have no research at all, but you have so many sites. Principle contradiction of literature. Till now, the database has been fed by myself. It's published also in 2007. Has been fed by myself with occasional help from students of University of Rome. Today, Prebiblio counts about 15,000 sites, 60% of its estimated total. 6,000 bibliographic references, 10%, and 50,000 links, between them, 8% of the estimated total. In the web future of the project, maps and georeferencing devices will contain both a true topographic and geological coverage, as well as more user-friendly tools as Google Earth and similar. But Google Earth is not a map. It's an image. We need maps because maps interpret the landscape. The link between maps and bibliography will be performed by GIS software basically a database associated with maps by means of coordinated entities at points, lines, or areas, searching for some exploitation of this respectable amount of data and aiming to a more effective fundraising because the ministry is off. I accepted the proposal of DigiLab of Sapienza, the main university of Rome, for data sharing in its digital library project. DigiLab is in a newborn structure aiming the digitalization, diffusion, and communication of cultural and scientific information and archives. Its digital library project aims to collect, diffuse, and harmonize different kinds of archives, produced both by universities, research institutions, or private citizens. In the last year, with DigiLab personnel, the pre-biblio database has been transferred by PC to a more robust online platform database based on MySQL software. On this basis, pre-biblio will be completely open access in a few months. Surely, the project is still in its infancy because the lack of funding in the context of a general surrender of public control on a landscape and heritage in Italy, as perfectly described by the theory of the rise of a liquid society. Moreover, archaeology don't have a common scientific language for sharing their information. A large amount of quantitative published data are for the most circumscribed inside the realm of each specific period, subdiscipline, both in cultural or epistemological sense. So it's quite impossible to imagine a data sharing between prehistoric archaeologists as fast, effective, and useful as in genomics or biological science. But let me analyze the causes of these difficulties as follows. First, academics. If they want to survive in the mainstream of academic archaeology or quaternary geology, researchers concentrate their efforts on a specific region, a period of prehistory, or a dating method, for instance, radiocarbon, thermoluminescence, and so on. And so they are driven to improve their career in the short term with new results in their corpus clausus. Because of this, although they hope for the existence of a background information, they don't feel the need to involve themselves in such a venture. 2. Local policies. In the last years, in Italy, local authorities, the most important of which are municipalities, are asked to fund themselves by royalties on private buildings, so they do not bear happily constrictions of any kind on town and country planning. Planning is off in Italy. 3. Central policies. The retreat of the state from any kind of real control on its own territory, the dismissal of geological bureaus, the lack of maintenance of the landscape, and the rigid legislation on heritage are the most impressive failures of these, at least irresponsible, but sometimes criminal practice. Currently, pre-biblio is on server on DigiLab, developing the procedures for online access. In a first phase of public availability, we will test its catalographic and geographic fitness, allowing access for students and archaeologists of Regional Bureau, Ministry of Culture. These last, particularly, need a quick and performing tool for retrieving published information on the heritage they should preserve. With regard to the field control, I would like to stress that all bibliographical data are till now referred to maps only by the topographic information contained in the text. No survey has been done by myself. But I guess no surveying campaign will be done in the next future because of the collapse of cultural heritage management in Italy. Collapse. The database, however, can allow a general layout of the deep past of human settlement in Italy, and I think that is quite an honest target per se. But how could I resume the main cruxes behind this specific kind of data set, namely information on evolution, landscape, history of science? I see the following. First, the dilemma of conservation. Officers of Ministry of Culture think that the diffusion of precise localization of sites can be a threat for their conservation. Are we sure that looters need maps for doing their job? And do we hope that maps and related technical paraphernalia can really help conservation of prehistoric and paleontological heritage via a more diffused knowledge by local people? 2. The illusion of total enjoyment. Popularization of science is a duty. For so doing, how many accessible archaeological sites we need to open for public visitation? And what we do with the vast majority of minor sites, 99%. 3. The misleading of tourism. Public administrators, when learning about past remains in their territory, for the most, aim to explore them touristically in order to have a short-term income. But they refuse to bear the expenses of their maintenance, certainly greater than their profitability. In its capital book, The Heritage Crusade and Spoils of History, David Lowenthal has stressed the niceties of heritage industry and the brittleness of its myths. Could the sharing of knowledge about the past and the evolution help us to unravel these ambiguities and to live more consciously?